Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. We will call the Sawyer County Administration Committee meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Reed Schumann,
Here.
Dale Slater,
Yep.
James Schlender, Ron Kinsley, Tom Duffy.
Here.
You have a quorum.
The record indicate that, please. Certification of compliance with open meetings law.
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Number 4, meeting agenda has been presented. Questions, concerns? If not, move on to public comment. Public comment, I have a list of fine folks that have requested to speak. We'll limit it to 3 minutes. State your name and address, please, and maybe come up to that microphone by that chair. We'll start then with Miss Donna Nucky, please.
All right, I'm Donna Nucky and I live at 3416 W County Road W in Winter. And I'm representing the Winter Public Library. And I know I've spoken to the whole board, spoken to Finance Committee several times, but I'm here at the Admin Committee as it was suggested last Thursday night to come and speak with the Admin Committee. Libraries are important and a great way for the county to fund the libraries and give services to our patrons and to our taxpayers. And I just wanted to say that each individual library prepares a budget, our own budget, and then we submit it to the board. And so I'm just asking that you fund the libraries at the amounts that they requested based on the needs of their libraries. And I'm here if there's questions. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Nucky. Okay, next then, Molly Lank Jones, please.
Hi, I'm Molly Lane Jones. I'm the library director. I think you all know at Sherman Reflex Community Library. I'm at 10498 in Airport Road in Hayward. And most of you have already heard what I was going to say at the earlier meeting, but I did want to point out that I invited Carol Pfaff, who is director of the Lacoudere Ojibwa College, I'm getting that name messed up, I'm sorry, library. And she is here to answer any questions if that is allowed at any point. And I just want to reiterate that we do all work together. We support each other and we support each other in our funding requests to the county board every year. And we also work together on county plans every, I think it's 3 years. So that's really all I wanted to do. I did say that literacy is always a good investment, and I appreciate that you have been doing so for all these years.
Molly, could she just come up and introduce herself, please? I recognize her, I'm sure. And your name again, ma'am?
You want me to come up?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Speak into the mic.
Morning,
We
I'm Carol
welcome
Path.
you, thank you.
I'm sorry?
We welcome you, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm Carol Path, the Lacoudere Library, and I live at 6280 North Thor's Lane, Stone Lake, Wisconsin.
Okay, and you're the administrator for the library or the
Yeah.
director?
I'm basically here for moral support for all of our libraries. So.
Wonderful, you're welcome anytime,
Oh, thank you.
okay?
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll go with Sherry McCone, please.
Sherry Jonas, Director of the
That's right,
Northern
sorry.
Waters Library Service. And so that is in Ashland, Wisconsin. So as everyone said, we have been at many meetings now asking for financial support for our libraries. My board has requested $23,000 like it has in the past 2 years for Northern Waters Library Service to county residents that don't get served by libraries. And so we're just here in support of everything the county has done for decades and decades. And so we really appreciate it. The only other thing I wanted to bring up was something that was brought up at the last county board meeting about CARES Act funds and ARPA funds for libraries, because there was a question if it was represented in their income. The Department of Public Instruction only releases those funds to library systems to purchase services or actual physical items for our libraries. We don't get to keep that funding, and we can only purchase actual things. So it's not for any operational costs, so it wouldn't show up in any of their financials nor ours, since it's a complete wash and it's a pass-through. So I just wanted to clear that up. And I'm here for any questions that I can help answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay. Linda Zelmer, please.
Linda Zelmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Edgewater property owner and property taxpayer. Wanted to comment on recognizing that Supervisor Olson has mentioned a few times now about some financial history of the county when the county had no debt. And in there, probably Mr. Schluter and Mr. Kinsley remember when there was a resource development fund that was funded by county timber sales, and that money was set aside and it was available to use for expensive projects like dams. And then the county as well as towns were blessed with American Transmission Company, ATC funds, a pool of money that was then ultimately spent as well. In watching how the county has gone through the resource development funds and the ATC funds, and many committees discussing that there should be county criteria developed for how those funds are used. Politically and practically, that never happens. And there's already been discussion, well, there should be criteria developed for ARPA funds. And I can see that that's probably not going to happen either. But I think that that's a worthwhile discussion to make sure that issues that are important to community and meeting needs are served. We've had Indian Head Community Action Agency selling or have already sold a number of low, moderate income housing units. There are a lot of needs that I would hope the county would consider. Also, with regard to the financial information that the county board supervisors see when they do their budgets or if they monitor during the year, I think budget to budget comparisons are not adequate in helping you make informed decisions. I would like to request that as soon as it is available to be posted, the 2020 audit be posted to the county website, and then also possibly before Tuesday, if a full trial balance could be posted under the budget section in the administrative webpage that shows 2020 actuals, 2021 budget, 2021 actual year to date, another column for estimated year end, and then the 2022 budget, so that supervisors and the public can see trends as you make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Selmer. Okay, anyone else online, Mike? Good. All right, is there anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I didn't fill out one of them sheets, but anyway, I am here to support the
State your name.
libraries.
State your name and address, sir.
My name is Ron Buckholz, 9597W Dansman Road, Exlin. And I support all three libraries. I am board appointed from the county board to sit on the winter library. And I'm also the president of that winter library. And I just want everybody to know that I'm in favor of the county board supporting these libraries.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Buckholz. All right. No one?
I have a comment.
Okay, yes. Ms. Pettit.
Pettit. I live on Simpson Road in Winter. I am the District 12 supervisor. I am here in support of the funding to the libraries and to not cut any funding to Winter, Hayward, or LCO. If we could bring LCO up, that would be great. But I see there has not been a request from LCO to be brought up to last year's funding that they had received. But I am in support of the libraries continuing getting their funding. It is very important in our community. As Mr. Buckholz will attest to, we have many children that do not have broadband, and the library serves that function so they could do their homework. So they would have the resources to finish their homework. It's a place where they can go after school, because the after school program had been cut at the winter school, and it's resources for the children that they can go there and get the materials that they need. It's also for the families that we're very low income on the south end. It would be unfortunate if our winter library did not get the fundings it needs. It serves a great service to our community and the surrounding towns to us. As Radisson, Coudray, Loretta, Draper, we need our winter library. We're a very small town. We do not have the transportation to get to Hayward. We do not have a bus that comes many stops, many times all day long to get anybody anywhere into Hayward to get the resources they need. So I'm in support of the funding for the libraries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pettit. All right, moving on to the number 6, approval of meeting minutes, October 14th, 2021. Mr. Kinsley.
Move to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kinsley, second by Mr. Schluter to approve the meeting minutes as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7, Veteran Service Department report. Gary?
Good morning. So for October, we had 366 phone calls, 333 letters, emails, faxes, and 107 office visits. For our VA disability compensation and pension claims, we had 106 disability and pension claims to date, and received retroactive payment of over $342,000 for the claims decided in veterans' favor. And our training continues to be up to date at this point.
Gary, do you have any extra budget requests for 22, or are you asking for the same amount in your department?
Okay. Well, sir, I have cut my budget for, I think, the last 3 years. I could probably cut some more.
I'm not asking you that though. I'm
No,
just wondering.
but that is it. I mean, you've wanted, I mean, the county's wanted us to be, zero input. We've done zero input. And we continue to do zero input. I don't know of any increase that we've done off the top of my head. So it's always come out balanced. Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. Mr.
You mean
Schlender.
zero input or zero impact on the county budget?
Zero, as far as increase, zero increase for my budget.
Right, so I'm trying to just kind of clarify your words. Zero input means that we're not asking for your input. Zero impact means that you're budget neutral in terms of what your budget impact is on the county budget.
I would say I'm budget neutral
Okay, so.
for the last, whatever, 4 years. And I've cut.
Yes, Ms.
If
Hessel.
you look at the budget, they're getting less this year than they did last year. So just making a note of that.
We have continued to be good stewards.
I agree. Mr. Schlender.
Mr. Hoff, how are they funded? Is it under the levy limit, outside the levy limit, through bake sales? What?
That's inside the levy limit, and they do get grant funding.
Okay, and I can talk to that right now. That if anything's come up short, it's been the grant funding. There's 2 grants that I apply for every year. One is for the CVSO grant, and that's went up. God help me, I don't remember. It used to be $8,500. It's bumped up a little bit more from that. Not a whole lot. I think it's, God, don't hold me to this. I want to say 10.8. I think it's 10.8 now, or 11.8. So that's increased, and that was because the state increased. That hadn't changed in like 20 some years. So they finally bumped it up for us. What we were asking for when we went in was the smaller counties got more money than the larger counties, because the larger counties have a larger tax base. Those offices have several thousands of dollars in their budget from grant, from taxes, plus they have all these nonprofit organizations that we do not have up here. That didn't happen. So that increased, now the other grant was the transportation grant. The transportation grant is based off how much usage we did in the last year. So it's always based on the last year, and it goes from June to June. And I submit that grant paperwork in October, I want to say. And that money has went down because our usage has went down. Now, why has our usage went down? Our usage went down because of President Trump, when he was in office, he did community care where veterans weren't able to get into the VA immediately. He basically bypassed that, where the veterans could go see a local provider on the VA's dime to get the care that they needed in a timely fashion versus dying in line. And that's, if you go back to when he was first elected, that was what was going on in the country. So that still stands. Now, when and if that money ever runs out or stops, that's going to increase our need again, our demand for traveling. The other thing that impacted our travel down to Minneapolis was COVID. The COVID basically shut down, the VA shut down. They were going to basically mental health appointments and high-risk cancer patients that were already diagnosed with cancer that were in treatment. That's what they were seeing for the most part. Everybody else was pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. Now that has changed. The doors are back open. For the most part, it's not where we were pre-COVID, but it's getting closer every day. And our demand for van is increasing again. I don't think it will be what it was prior to President Trump until the community care in the community goes away, which, all of the things that seem like they come to an end eventually. So I don't know. I would be afraid to release that program because we probably need it in the future. Now, again, it's based on need. So what we did in the past, we were getting somewhere around $12,000, and that trickled down to, I think, $8,000 last year. Again, I don't have my budget paperwork here with me on how much came in, but we used it and we got reimbursed. So if we don't use it, we're not paying anything. That's really it. I'm not paying a driver. I'm not paying for gas. I'm not paying for increased maintenance on the vehicles. But it is there. So those are the two grants. So the transportation grant has decreased, but so has our cost for that van service. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, Mr. Schlanger?
Mr. Hoff, Ms. Hessel indicated that there was a decrease in the funding from last year to this year. Would that be reflective of the awards, the grants were coming into the Veterans Department?
Mike, can you help with that?
Yeah, I think like Gary mentioned, the main reduction to his budget for next year is in the transportation program area.
So it's not a county decision, it's a state decision in terms of what the funding level would be. And then we're still able to provide services even at that funding level.
Yeah, the rest of his program, I mean, the wages and whatnot, we compute, so, it's just the other ancillary services that Gary provides that are in his budget.
It's just to add the transportation grant. Small amount of that, I think it's 4,000 annually, we transfer to the general fund to help with operating expenses.
Yep. And
The remainder of that grant goes to capital to help replace the next van when the replacement comes due.
Yep, and as far as those van replacements too, because sorry, Mike, I just jumped right in on that, but normally it was like every 3 years, it was time to replace a van. I pushed that back, and I will continue to push it back on, based on how much we're using those vans. So I'm not gonna turn a van in just because we've hit a year marker and not a usage or a mileage or a repair type thing. So like I said, we tried to be very good stewards.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Gary.
So-
Mr. Duffy, did you have anything to add?
No, I want to know how often the van goes down to the cities. He's answering that.
He did? Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that, Gary, and appreciate all you do. Are you aware that the tribal CVSO is taking another job now and with
I
the
am.
state?
I am.
And that will be posting for that position, and if you know of any tribal member that would like to represent in our tribal CVSO position, that would help us. Could you reach out to me?
Yeah, I can.
Terrence, yeah,
Yep.
we just had a little party for Terrence, so. But he's done a great job for us and took a job with the state as tribal liaison, so that was a great move for him. All right, anything else for Gary? Okay, if not, we'll move on then to number 8, information technology. Mike?
Good morning. I submitted my report. The only other addition since submitting is we've been requested by the court system CCAP to assist in some preliminary work so they can put a new digital audio recorder in. So that'll take Alex and I about a day to rewire. If we didn't do that, they basically have to put a rack on the wall, in a small courtroom, which would look pretty bad. So we figured we needed to do that rewiring anyway. So we'll be doing that later this month. Other than that, I don't have anything that needs attention unless there's any questions.
Yes, Mr. Schlender.
Mr. Colson, I want to publicly acknowledge the work that you've been doing. It's been from the time I've started here to now, there has been a marketed reliability that it's unique, but it's amazing to have the follow-up that you do and then the protection that you offer. And for those who don't understand the pressures of running an IT department, to make sure that everything stays working takes a lot of work behind the scenes. And because it's always behind the scenes, there's never any recognition for the work that you do. So I want to say you do a good job, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Anything else for Mike? All right, if not, thank you, Mike. Move on to the number 9. Resignation of county treasurer. So we decided not to accept this.
Right, 'cause I mean, if we don't accept it, you can't resign. Just
Discussion and possible action. Mr. Hawk, you want to chime in, or Diane?
Set here, but I'll just listen for a while.
Yeah, jump right in there. Thank you.
Yeah, so by statute, the clerk submits a resignation letter to the sheriff, who then contacts the county board chair. And then the vacancy can be filled by the appointment of the county board for the remainder of the unexpired term, or you could order a special election for that position. So that's in your hands.
Mr. Kinsley,
Yes.
thoughts? Dan, when is your, I should read, when is your last day is? When would
Well,
you like?
December
to-
31st is what I had submitted in my letter.
Okay, yep, I see that now. So that you're willing to work till the end of the year then, correct?
Correct.
And
And
then Tom, the county board would then appoint someone to take over January 1st?
Yes. If that's the way you want to go.
So the balance of so you just got elected, how long is your term?
4-year term.
4 years.
So
you
there's
just
3 years remaining.
3 years from now. And then how do we go about, do we just pick someone that's good, or what do we do?
I think like with others, I think we would advertise that we have a position open and have them apply. And then share that with the board. We could select one that we all could agree on.
And then how much would it cost to hold an election?
A special election would likely be between 20 and 25,000.
And given the current politics, I hope we never have another election, so.
And Mr. Hoff, do we need to have a motion then to accept her resignation? I'll be right with you, Ms. Hessel.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Ms. Hessel,
Can it go on the April election without any additional cost?
That's under investigation. I've called some clerks and they're not quite sure.
Under investigation. It's being looked into, right?
It's being looked into, yes. Oh, pun, yes.
elections.
But we would have several months without a treasurer.
Yes.
Thank you for all you've done, and we'll continue to do that. Best wishes to you.
I've enjoyed it.
Good.
How many years, Diane?
I'll have 23 years in,
23.
and I've enjoyed it. It's just time to move on.
Okay, pleasure of this board.
So what action needs to happen from this then?
Nothing today, but you will need to either appoint someone or establish an election. And then, if there is an election that you want to do we need to appoint somebody in that interim between the end of the year and April? I think you're looking into that as well.
Is there a deputy treasurer? Are you a one-person team?
Well, there's 3 people in my official office. One just retired last Friday, so we have a new person coming in November 15th, which is a training period that's not going to be done overnight. And then that would leave 1 deputy. And if I leave, we need another position.
So what's going on in your office that's making everybody retire?
We're getting old. Barb was with us over 30 years.
Over 30 years, Joe.
I mean, and you're not going to find employees that work 30 years anymore. I said, it's a unique experience, and she did a fine job, and she was ready to spend time with her family, and I say kudos to her.
Well, Tom and I have discussed this, and we think that we should put out an announcement that we'll have a vacancy coming up as our treasurer. If it's okay with this board, I think we should post that, and then we start looking at any applicants or interested parties.
You have to.
You need a motion to that effect, Mr. Hoff, or can we just give?
We
Give
can
you a
put
directive.
notice out, and then
Yeah.
you can deal with the applicants as they come in.
I'd like to do that, and then Madam Clerk will put it on next month's agenda, please. Any other discussion? Yeah, again, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. All right, moving on to number 10. Human Resources Report. I don't see Rose here, but she provided us a written report. Tom, do you want to?
Yes, Rose wasn't able to make it today. She's listening to a webinar that Mike and I couldn't make regarding the opioid settlement, which is coming up. So she did provide a report here. So we've got several positions that we're still trying to find personnel for. We are probably okay on jailers, dispatchers, sheriff deputies. We did get applications for those positions. Some of the ones that are listed here, we have not had adequate applicants or qualified applicants for, so we're still looking for several of those positions.
Okay. Anything on the, any questions for Tom on the Human Resource Report? All right, if not, then moving on. Sawyer County Supervisory District Final Plan. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we are in the final stages of redistricting. The proposed map, which is map 3, version 2, has been emailed to all clerks, municipal clerks. I have almost all the resolutions back with dates to expect the remaining few. So we have a resolution to accept the plan to go forward to the county board at this point.
Mr. Kinsley.
Make a motion to approve the plan and move forward to the county board.
Mr. Duffy.
I'll second it.
Second. Motion by Mr. Kinsley, second by Mr. Duffy to approve the resolution adopting the final supervisory Sawyer County District Plan and send it to county board. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Schleter.
A question. I saw in the paper yesterday morning that the governor is submitting a different redistricting plan for the whole state. Is there anything that the legislature can do that would cause us to have to change anything within our county boundaries?
It could. I don't
could.
suspect it would happen up here. I suspect maybe potentially
Where
further
the
south,
county is
but
more densely
I don't know.
populated.
They can change our plan if they want.
Okay, Just wondering. Thank you.
Dale, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Nice job. Okay, number 12, County Administrators Report. Mr. Hoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been dealing mostly with budget items the last month or two here, but I've got a couple other things I wanted to mention. The court renovation is progressing nicely. We're still meeting every other week with the architect and the construction manager to continue to define the inside of the building, the structure, the materials used on the interior, door placements, all that sort of thing. We had looked at the option of solar power for the building. And so we had that analyzed to a different consultant and also the architect. It was determined that at this time, it's not feasible due to the cost, the location of the roof and how it all is structured. So the recommendation there is not to provide solar power for that. There was other fine refinements made to the plan. There was a restroom eliminated in one of the jury rooms, just the way the halls and the doors worked. It didn't work out, so we got authorization from the district administrator, court administrator to change that plan slightly. So those kind of refinements continue to happen as we work towards getting a bid package together for later this year. There is an early bid package that will go out for structural steel, since there's a long lead time for that with the supply issues. So they suggested that we get that out as soon as possible. So that will be going out either later this month or early in December, I believe. So we've got a couple of meetings yet before Thanksgiving, one next Wednesday and then the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And so we'll be pretty close to having final plans at that time. Got some issues that we're dealing with out at the airport, just as far as operations and compliance with FAA regulations. We had an inspection. There were a few things that needed to be cleaned up, like with fuel testing and that sort of thing. So Derek is taking care of that and responding to the FAA. We continue to work on our ordinance codification with Unicode. Received a draft back from them. We're refining some of the changes that were made and hope to have that in front of the board in December. The ARPA grants, we talked about that for broadband. We had a couple of applications that were approved, and so that will get funded in those areas that we had talked about prior. And I briefly mentioned there's a webinar right now with our attorneys regarding the opioid settlement, the J&J settlement, and the paperwork that we'll need to do before January 2nd. So that'll be coming back to you in December to look at the settlement agreement for the big three distributors as well as the J&J settlement. So we'll hopefully have, well, not hopefully, we will have the allocation of dollars to the counties at that point and the settlement agreement to look at for your approval.
Did you mention at an earlier committee meeting, Mr. Hoff, that it looks better for the counties now because of some distribution to the counties, not through the state?
Yeah, Wisconsin fought real hard to have the money distributed to Wisconsin go directly to the counties as opposed to the state, which would then decide how to allocate to the counties. I think that happened in the tobacco settlement, and counties didn't get the option of doing what they needed to do with those funds. So this time around, 70% of the funds allocated to Wisconsin will go to counties directly, so that the Health and Human Services Department that will be doing the programming and remediation for opioid usage will have access to those dollars directly and can use it accordingly.
Thank you. Wow. Anything else with your report, sir?
Nope.
Do you see the opioid money at all affecting our 22 budget?
Any money we would receive due to the opioid settlement is not in the budget. So if and when we receive those dollars, and I think in the settlement, we should see dollars in 2022. And if we do, then those would come into the county, and then we would do a budget adjustment. Because I'm sure there's parameters on how we use those funds. So we'll see what that settlement entails and what we would be required to do to use those funds. And a budget adjustment would happen at that time. So there's not any expenses or revenue in the budget due to those opioid dollars that may come in.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Hoff? We want to tell him what a good job he did?
Yeah, I would be honored to tell him.
Please do.
I have
Well, we sure appreciate you and Mr. Keefe, I'll tell you what, along with others, but that's been amazing. Okay, number 13, 2022 updated budget discussion, possible action. Mike, you want to come up to the, you might fire some questions at you.
Sure.
Mr. Slender.
I don't know where this discussion is going to go, but I would ask if we could have the Hayward Library Director and the Northern Waters Library Director come back up. I have some questions for them, but only in the sequence of how we're going to have this discussion.
Okay.
I don't know if you have a formal presentation or.
No, I just put it in.
Budget is in the county board's hands, so if you've got questions, we can answer them. You can have discussion about the budget. There's been two other motions made in other committees. The Economic Development Committee made a motion to fund the $40,000 Visitors Bureau change with ARPA funds. ARPA funds can be used for tourism promotion, so that would be a funding activity that could be done by ARPA funds. So that's coming forward from Economic Development. Finance Committee put a motion forth to accept the administrator's budget as it was and move that to the county board. So those are the two, I believe, two motions that came out of committees regarding the budget.
And the resolution from Finance Committee passed?
Yeah, and so they'll, those will go to the county board as suggestions, and then the county board through their discussion next Tuesday can do whatever they want with the budget at that time as well. So, those aren't binding until you officially adopt.
The county board approves them.
Yeah.
So is there an order of precedence who's the Robert Rules guy here? Who's a parliamentarian? Which motion has precedence?
Well, those are forwarded to the board for discussion. So in your budget deliberations, you can incorporate those in the budget or not based on your.
So Econ made their motion on Monday. Finance made theirs on Wednesday, right? Or Thursday?
Yes.
Just today, yeah.
And then there's still the pending motion or the full board's direction for the 40,000. We'll have to do some reading before Tuesday.
Yep. Mr. Keefe, do you have any comment regarding the budget that's going to be proposed and for Tuesday?
No, I think it's a good budget. We're ready to go. We're ready to move on, I'm sure.
Okay.
Unless you have questions, I've got nothing additional to add.
Well, I have, I've been pondering this question for days now since we talked about the Hayward Lakes Visitor Bureau received an increased amount of room tax from townships. Is that correct? Do we know that number or do we?
You were supplied with that packet of information that showed their financial statements, including the room tax that they received, as well as a budget projection for next year on what they would receive for room tax. And I don't remember the number, but it was like 180,000.
Yeah, and that was 2 townships. And I think there's a third that's been approved.
There's 2 more that have been approved since then, Round Lake and. Yes, thank you.
I guess I was just confirming that number. I'm glad it's 180,000.
That's off the top of my head. You'd have to look
Yeah,
at
I know. I'll go back to it. Ms. Hessel.
I just want to remind everyone in this committee that we are a tourism town, and that's how we get our revenue. The ARPA funds are intended to use for tourism. to tell them that they're doing too good of a job, so they're gonna lose funding is kind of a slap in the face, and I don't agree with that.
Thank you. Okay, you had some questions. I'll gladly bring the library people for a couple questions.
Can we get the budget back up, Mr. Colson? And I want to specifically see the library allocations. And then I want it for anybody first name to this instructors. What's your last name?
Link Jones.
Link Jones. So
Finance.
and I need the budget number because I have a question for her. And so my question is, there's an amount that is the minimum amount that is assigned by the county. And if that number changes from year to year, do you know why, or why that information why the funding models would have been different, or why they changed?
For Act 420, Sherry would be better at explaining the legal.
Yeah, so Sawyer County is unique in the way that they have funded libraries in their county since the beginning
I
of
want to stop you
libraries.
for 1 second, because it's not, I'm not asking about the county's funding contribution. What I'm trying to figure out is, and if we can, the budget, the screen that we looked at full board showed what they had received, what their minimum payment was. And so that minimum payment was something that was there, but there was last year's minimum payment and then this year's minimum payment. And what I want to know is, if someone can explain to me, the state makes that determination, right?
Correct.
And so do you know what the factors are when they make that determination?
Yes, the two main things in the formula is circulation numbers and operational costs for the library.
Excellent. So did your numbers for the 3 libraries, did they go down from last year to this year? Do you know that?
Almost everybody saw a major decrease in circulation.
Right. And so this is a question for you. In the model of cooperation, would you feel it was appropriate if you amended your request to bring the funding levels from 2022's projected number to match the 2021 number on all 3 libraries, since all 3 of you are working together?
Okay, I'm not sure I fully understand that question, but.
So what I'm asking is, if you were to ask on behalf of all 3 libraries, because this is outside the levy limit, would you feel comfortable in demonstrating the support for the libraries by asking for all 3 libraries to be funded at the model from last year?
At the model from our.
The minimums
Act
that we have.
At the minimum, no, Sawyer County, okay, Act 420, the way that I understand it is cross-county borrowing. And Sawyer County receives requests from libraries in adjacent counties.
Right.
Asking for 70% of the amount it costs them to check out materials, provide services to Sawyer County citizens.
Can I help you cut to the chase on what I'm asking? So if you want to ask for 200,000 for the Hayward Library, and you're asking 75,000 for the Winter Library, and 18,973 is the amount that's being allocated as the minimum contribution from the county. But last year they received 25,008, and there is a difference between the numbers there. Would you feel comfortable with the coalition that is showing support for the library to ask for your funding request to include the amount equal to what would make the LCO Community Library at $25,802?
Instead of Molly answering that, since each library has its own board they answer to, Carol from LCO is here. I would like her to respond to that question, since it's her board that authorized her to request that $18,000. Carol, can you come up and speak to your request?
Basically, it's following the formula that we're given, and our circulation was way down, and then our local funds was way down. We're way down. So
The amount we asked is the legal amount. I don't know.
Would
if you
your
can ask for
board, you can always ask for more, absolutely. The state Act 150 and Act 420 are only the bare minimums that counties have to uphold to. You can always ask for more. And so do you think your board would be in favor of you
Absolutely.
asking for more?
We could ask for 25,000 and
But may I interject, Carol, that it's my understanding, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it's my understanding that you asked for what you need.
we ask for what we're allowed, is what I thought. There's the formula. It's local funds divided and plus circulation.
But is that
I see
speaking
Ms.
as a sovereign
Can we
nation?
bring this back to the
No,
board's discussion?
speaking as a
Yeah,
public
yeah.
library in Wisconsin.
There's that. I gotta go with Mr. Buckholz here.
Yeah,
There's a,
I want to talk on behalf of the LCO library. It seems like the director here does not have what I want to say, a sense of direction. She has no board that's giving her the right direction, and I would not be opposed to give them the 25,802. At least what they had last year. That's why we need for you to get a county board member on the LCO so they can help this person do the budgets like the other libraries do.
sure, thank you, Mr. Buckholz. All right, is there any other questions for our library folks out there? Ms. Hessel? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I gotta go with Mr. Schluter. I didn't see his hand.
I have my hand up.
I gotta go with the board people that are present. Don, I'll check with you,
I
okay,
understand.
after Ms. Hessel. Mr. Schluter?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused here. I think I understand that there are 3 pots of money. Pot number 1, where I think the $18,000 that has been referred to is the fee that Sawyer County pays to the LCO College Library for county residents using their library. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
That's the 18,000. And the minimum, people refer to the minimum payment. What is that? Where does that come from? Who rules that?
That's in state statute, Act 150 and Act 420, which we referred to earlier. And so the 18,000 this year is that formula that's dictated in state statute. That's what it comes out to this year.
Okay, that's not the minimum I was thinking of. There, if I recall right, there's a minimum amount that you put in to sustain the libraries. We can't go under that. And I'm not even sure who decides what that minimum is, but I think it's a formula that the state gives the county to come up with the minimum amount of assistance to the libraries. And it's based on what you've done in the past. So you're kind of, it helps stabilize the library's budgets over the years. We can't all of a sudden cut there from county funds, not from the fee funds, but from county tax or non-tax levy dollars.
What you're referring to is the county tax exemption, and that does exist. However, Sawyer County is unique in the fact that Hayward and Winter do not have municipalities that financially support them, and the county does support them. So the formula that is used in the county tax exemption, it is a little bit different, but you are correct that there is a minimum, but it is low because of the way the libraries are funded in this county.
Actually, the college is considered a municipality. It's not the
Yeah,
county.
yeah, but Winter and Hayward don't have those. So yeah, that's why LCO is a little bit different.
So we have our own budget in that, and I'm given for the library.
So,
Plus the
and
other
Mike,
grants.
well, I got a question for Mike. Mike, the minimum amount for Winter, is that a typo or is that true?
No, that's
That's
based
true.
on the reports they submitted to us.
Oh, okay, all right, go ahead, Mr. Schluter, I'm sorry.
So that's accounting for 2 pots. Then the third pot is also from the county. It can be the county's decision to go above and beyond the formulas number.
And it has been that way since 1995 for the reasons that Sherry had pointed out. Winter and Hayward don't have a municipal source of funding like most
Which
libraries do.
They should, yeah.
If I may answer your question, I am not opposed by any means for the LCO library to receive the same amount that they did last year. I support our sister libraries, absolutely. I have no problem with that.
Okay, is there any other questions from this board or this library team? I'm gonna go to you once.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, if not, Ms. Hessel,
My first name is Miss Pettit.
you.
Okay, so do all 3 of you get federal funding or is it just LCO?
I have federal grants. Is
You have
that what you
federal
mean?
grants.
Yeah, they're on the
Okay.
IMLS.
Okay, so does that limit you to asking for additional funds or did you just be respectful and stay with the formula?
Again, I didn't realize we could change the formula, if that's what you're asking.
Pardon me?
I didn't know we could ask for more than in the formula, that's in the formula.
Right, so you're being a good steward. I'm just asking if the federal dollars come into play at all where you two.
They don't count in formula either.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
You can't use them, you won't use local funds.
right.
Did you want to comment there, Sherry? or-
Yeah, no, just me and Mike were both saying the same thing, is that the formula, when you get to operational costs, it minuses federal funds, so it realizes that in the formula, so it's not factored in and it wouldn't hurt against the formula.
Okay, and I'm gonna go back to the board here. 1 second, I gotta go. Ms. Pettit. She's still on, Mike?
Yeah, I'm still on.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm speaking as a citizen, not a board member. I work at the LCO College. When we came back on where we opened our doors to the public and had our COVID-19 protocol set up, we do not only serve the reservation, we serve the surrounding community. We had many older individuals come in that needed to use the library services, and we had many students from the LCO student school district and the Hayward use the library to be able to do their work, even sat in our parking lot if we were closed to use the Wi-Fi from the library in the school. Our library was greatly used when we reopened, and it still is. We were thanked that we were one of the libraries that was open and giving services because they didn't know what they were going to do. And we still, as Carol, I can attest to, even when we were not fully open, the library, she was in there with her worker doing big book pickups. People were getting books and everything they needed for their kids if there was projects due from their virtual homework. They should be brought up to what she asked for last year. Her facilities was greatly used this year in the
All right,
past.
thank you. Thank you, Ms. Pettit. Okay, Mr. Schluter.
Yeah. Ms. Pettit, you work for the library?
I work for the college.
For the college, and that's where the library is.
I'm actually the COVID-19 coordinator at the college. So this was a big deal when we opened because there was nothing open in the area. The LCO school, the high school was closed down. We were the only facility open in the area at the time. Hayward was closed down. That the children and the older folks could come in, and even younger, 30, 40-year-olds, 20 college that were doing job applications and everything in this area. Our facility was greatly used. We had sometimes up to 100 people come through the doors, and we were not fully open.
Thank you, Ms. Pettit. Okay, we are in discussion, possible action, 2022 budget. What Mr. Schlender?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that the funding levels for the libraries remain as proposed under the county administrator's budget, with the single exception that 8,000 something, something, something be added to the LCO library to help that be maintained at the 2021 level.
Bring them up to the 21 level. Okay, motion by Mr. Schlender. Is there a second to that motion?
I'm thinking about that, and I thought when you were asking the questions to them ladies that that's where you were going, but I'd have asked it a little different, but that's okay. And yeah, if they didn't understand the formula, that they didn't realize they could ask for more, I think that they should be brought up to that because lack of information that they had. And I want to treat all the libraries the same also. So yeah, I guess that's a long answer to get to the second.
Second by Mr. Kinsley. Okay, I got a motion by Mr. Schlender.
Contagious.
Second by Mr. Kinsley to increase the LCO library funding to what they received in 2021.
Actually, the motion is to maintain the funding requests that have been approved in the county administrator's budget.
Yep.
With the single exception that the LCO library funding be increased to the 2021 level.
Perfect. You agree with that second, then, Mr. Kinsley?
I gotta rethink that. Yes.
Second by Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Hoff?
What about the other libraries on the list that had a reduction? Are you opening the door to increasing their budgets, not only this year, but in future years to ask for more than the minimum?
What are the libraries you making reference to?
All of the libraries on the list?
All the other libraries in different counties?
Yeah, the Act 420 libraries underneath that line.
So every other library in the county should also have this consideration? Is that what you
I'm
want?
just asking
You're just
about
making
the
a point.
future ramifications of.
So, well, so let me ask that question back to you then. So in every single year prior to that, with the exception of 2019, every other library has gone through a budget modification and no request has been brought forward. But for every year prior to 2019, there has been a request for LCO libraries to be included in the discussion. I mean, Link Jones, right? Did I say that right? She will absolutely attest that I've asked this question every year. Where is LCO? Why is LCO not being, why is it not here at the table? Today, we just found out that the librarian was not aware that she has the ability to, in submitting the formula, to also ask for consideration for previous, for other considerations. So if the other libraries want to come forward, they can absolutely do that. And if they want to, if we open that door, then they better open the door for us to ask them for that consideration as well. So that means the surrounding counties. So I just feel if we're going to support the libraries in Sawyer County, we should support all the libraries in Sawyer County. And if we're going to support all of the libraries, well, then other counties should take this other position as well. So I understand your argument and we'll rise to it when we need to.
Is there any further discussion on the motion?
So what's his answer? Your answer to your question, Tom. Well, are we opening the door in the future?
That's the question I raised.
posed
Just
that
to fully consider, the
Consequences.
ramifications of this moment, because then in the future, as we get requests, then, how do we handle that? But
Well, the slippery slope is going to be then if we want to open it or not, well, then why are we funding the other two libraries then with additional funding? And then we have the request from all of them. And then
Okay, we're in
even-
discussion,
they
Jim,
even
but I gotta let
modify
other
it.
board members chime in as well. If there's anybody. Yeah, Ms. Hessel.
So our focus should only be on Sawyer County. I mean, that's the county that we're in, that's the county that we're funding. But where is that other $8,000 gonna come from? Because I'm guessing you can't use ARPA funds for that either.
that would be.
You want to answer
increase
that,
in the
Mike,
tax rate,
or Tom? Okay.
since it's outside the levy limit, it would increase taxes.
In discussion, Mr. Schluter.
I understand your points you're making and they are valid. I wonder though, why you're using that 8,000 and odd figure when, if we're going to create a level playing field here, they should be requested to come up with a figure that is commensurate with their need rather than just repeating last year. Because the other libraries, all non-government agencies, nonprofits that we work with, we as a county board need to deal with and what their needs, individual needs are. You know, what are their other funding sources? How are their fundraisings going? How are the tax, room tax incomes coming in? And to just automatically assume it's going to be the same as last year, that's not exactly a level playing field all the way around.
Okay, got to hold on there, Mr. Slender. Madam Clerk, can you please repeat the motion, Mr. Slender?
The motion
Get to
is,
the question here.
is it the funding for the first two libraries remain the same as the administrator's budget originally, except bringing LCO up to the last year's level?
May I respond?
We're still in discussion. Is there anyone else? Yeah, no.
Is there a correction to that motion?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Schuler, next quick question. It's not 8,000, it's $6,831.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna do the math. Okay, I was gonna ask Mike, but thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Mr. Kinsley.
So let's just make it a little more clear, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So we're bringing them to,
They're 21 level.
which is 25,802.
Correct.
Just for clarification. Thank you. So in response.
Yeah, but
Mr.
I gotta go,
Slater,
Mr. Slender.
in response, if you were look, you have the same screen behind me. So if you look at 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, there has been a consistent request from both the Hayward and the Winter libraries. And so the minimums, which are only for 2022, I'm assuming that those minimums fluctuated consistent with the fluctuation that happened with the LCO library. But the LCO library, as we've learned, did not know that it could ask for money to maintain whatever its operation level was under county support.
When
So
did they-
we-
when
hold
did-
it, just let me, so we have the minimum amounts that are there, and the request from the entities themselves is to make sure that they have their operations, okay? And so if we're not going to put that level of scrutiny on their request, but we're going to make this additional scrutiny to try to keep LCO's fluctuated and never asked for support. And they're not even asking for support now. But we have everyone here saying we support the libraries, but why is it 2 out of 3? I mean, it's a nice song by Meatloaf, but it's not very fair to the LCO library, which if you look at their number now, it's like $15,000 down from what their operating levels were pre-COVID. So I mean, either we support the libraries or we don't. And if we're not going to, if we're going to be like afraid to give LCO the support equal to the other libraries without having to go to every other single library, you know, other people use this library as much as they use the Hayward Library and the Winter Library. Winter's library is 2,800, and we're giving that we're augmenting them up to 75,000. 122, and we're putting them up to 200,000. 18,000, and we're saying, well, it's too bad you didn't know you could ask for additional funds. I mean, it's, to me, oh my God, if this would have been, if these would have been children, there would have been a lawsuit against that. If this would have been any other kind of entity, except it seems to be the LCO library doesn't seem to have the same consideration for that funding.
Okay, Jim. Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, is there any other discussion, possible action on the 2022 budget? Mr. Kinsley?
Let's move forward.
Okay. All right. Future agenda items, number 14.
This is the place where we normally would put in things that we would think we'd move forward with on the ministry. But I would like to say, I hope we're done with the budget by then.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other matters for discussion only? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Mike, do you have a minute?